So I recall a few years ago writing an article in the Free Press about the Western Fair district here in London. And I was so delighted to discover that it's been around almost since Confederation. Now, that is so long ago. And I know that Western Fair has gone through so many different emanations in that time. And we all know it well. It's staple to us, not just about the fair, but all the agriculture stuff and food stuff and all the other things. And now it's really branching off in recent years to some fantastic new directions. And this is one of the people responsible for that. This is James Smith, and he's the director of Agri-Food and the Grove at Western Fair. And James, I really thank you for coming on. It's interesting. The Food Bank and Western Fair continue to run into one another at various initiatives, some of which we share together, but some of which I've learned that you're involved in and stuff. It's just been so interesting. How long have you been at Western Fair?
Thanks for having me on, Glenn. And yeah, it's a pleasure. But yeah, it's a great question. I'm relatively new here, so I'm coming up to my second end of my second year. So it's been a hectic couple of years, but it's been a very rewarding couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for us. I mean, people look at the Western Fair of things like the gaming or the horse racing or the fair or the market. It's got all of these different dimensions to it. It's right at the heart of the city, very, very close, very important to the east of Adelaide folks and others. But I think you suddenly have taken it in directions that are just so fascinating for anybody that's interested in food. So I know that you're looking at agri-food and all those things. Why don't you talk to us about what it is that you're trying to move towards? And I know it really regards a lot about growing food at Western Fair and getting it out there. Can you just go over that with us?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, a few years ago, Western Fair really wanted to take a look at all of the different things that they do here on site, and obviously we have gaming, we have racing, and those are big elements and amazing activities that happen on this site. But we also recognize that community sustainability, but also agriculture, which is really our roots. If you go back 150 years, you talked about that. That was something that we really weren't focusing on. It was kind of interwoven, of course, but we really took a look at how to really get back into and support our agricultural community. We're surrounded by diverse and rich agricultural farming land around us in southwestern Ontario. And we just thought, as an ag society, how do we actually support that industry and that segment of our part of southwestern Ontario? And how do we re-strategize to do more for that within our community? And I think it's amazing. We have almost 80 acres of land here. We're in the middle of the city of London, and
Amazing.
urban farming. Connecting people back to food through different programming, but also just the creation of and supporting of small business when it comes to food processing. And ultimately, we hope to bring that full circle to connect them to and create this stronger connection to the farming and producers around us.
Yeah, that's right. I've been involved with Western Fair of a number of initiatives over the years, but I think looking at it from the city angle, the City of London angle, they would look at something and say, we want to do something around food or whatever it is, and always space was an issue, right? It was, and
Yep.
facilities and infrastructure were an issue. You could get an open field somewhere and grow some
Yep.
food, but the whole idea of all the infrastructure that's required, and yet Western Fair has all of that, right? It's got indoor, it's got outdoor stuff.
Yep.
I just think it's so fascinating. Like it's a real jewel in London, but it seems to me we're really beginning to see that now as you move forward. Like I know you're doing the agri-food stuff, but you're also working on some startup stuff for food businesses. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the Grove, if I speak about the Grove, I mean, obviously, if you remember the Progress Building, which was the building that all of the vendors and so forth were in there, food vendors, but also the fair. vendors were in this building. And
Yeah.
several years ago, we were looking at that building and how to use it, and whether it was and still had a use on our site. And through a lot of work, it turned out that it was really perfect for this an amazing initiative called the Grove. I talk about the Grove, and I could talk for hours, Glenn. And I know we don't have hours,
You talk
but the
like it
Grove,
like it's one of your children. That's what
it
you're so
honestly,
proud of it.
truly,
Yeah.
truly, it is a really amazing project that I see as more of a philosophy here at Western Fair as opposed to the building. But in the project itself, the Grove is two things, and it's the catalyst to support food startups and also food production and food manufacturers that are ready to get into their own space. Because the Grove itself, the building, if you will, has two elements, but it kind of encompasses several different things. So we have an incubator, and that has 4 kitchen cells. It's close on 4,500 square feet,
Mm.
and it's designed 4 kitchens in there that have 4 somewhat unique uses, but all 4 kitchens have very general use when it comes to food processing and cooking of food.
Mhm.
We have a bake production focused cell. We have a beverage focused cell. We have one for soups and sauces, and then we have one that's more vegetable and fruits processing based. And they all have different equipment in them to support those unique elements. Those are designed to support small business to get into affordable food processing spaces that has been built to Canadian Food Inspection Agency standards. So again, very professional space. There is lots of this space in London, and I find that's a really rich part of London. We really are connected with food. I think this adds more space that's been seen to be a barrier. And then with that, we also have through our collaborations, and again, this is another part that makes this project so unique, I believe, and really one of a kind. And I'm so proud to be a part of it, in that it actually brings the London Economic Development Corporation together, the Small Business Development Programming together, the London Training Centre. A lot of these collaborations, Fanshawe College, Western University, and Brescia University College, all come together and collaborate to create this space that supports these startups. It helps them through business development, business planning, marketing. So we've really created this community around the Grove that is designed to kind of lower the barriers to entry into this market, this food retail market. And it just created a natural progression. And through the federal development funds, which we're so thankful for, they've been so amazingly supportive in this whole project. We also built into this FedDev grant and project the support of 20 startup accelerator businesses. And what that is we now have and are working with and helping to develop and grow companies that are ready for their own four walls. So not necessarily ready to buy land and build buildings, but ready to have and design their own space, four walls. We lease the space to them, but we also help them develop. We look at their businesses. What do they need? What equipment do they need? We support them through this in designing their own space. And again, give them this space that's the next step in their success. And then again, through all those collaborations with the Small Business Center, Economic Development Corporation, and the Training Center, build programming around supporting them in expanding, scaling up, marketing, logistics, labeling. Just labeling alone can be a daunting task for companies. So we support them through that. So that's in essence the grove within that building. But then, of course, we have seed funding for tech, agri-tech companies through a collaboration with RHA accelerators. They've built a lot of support around helping companies get software and technology companies. We have an agrobotics, Hagerty Agrobotics. We've helped support and seed in serving the weeding of crops, which was very labor intensive. Well, they've created robots that actually do this, and so it's very, very cool. Yeah, so it kind of encompasses a lot of different things, but it's really built around the creation of this community that supports each other through challenges, but also through successes.
I think what says, I remember, 8, 9 years ago being involved with Western Fair. They were kind of going down another route at that time. They were trying to explore what their future would be. But part of that team that was meeting was folks from Fanshawe. It was Dave
Yes.
Court from the London Training Center, right? It
Yep.
was John
Yep.
Fleming from the City of London. It was myself. And what's interesting is that all of those groups have stayed with you. So it's morphed into a whole new direction, but somehow you've been able to not just keep them inspired by what you're doing, but actually use their creativity to help you as you move some of these things forward. I think it's
Yes.
fascinating because oftentimes you'll see things in London, will get started up, it'll be great, people will come by, they'll discuss. It doesn't really work out and everybody kind of goes their separate ways. But you haven't done that at Western Fair. I think that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, we've been able to nurture those collaborations and partnerships, I think, really well because our programming lends itself to supporting a very diverse group of businesses in and around London. And again, I think all of these groups see the amazing potential and value of
Yeah.
each other's part that they play in the success of these companies. And to me, I've been in the food industry and food business and education business around tourism, hospitality, and food for the better part of 3 decades, and I've not seen this many groups of a city's resources, but also outside of that, industry, education resources come together and maintain this. And it takes work, and it takes supporting each other. But I think we've created that here, that platform for people to be able to help each other.
Yeah, I really think that that's true. And Business Cares, which is around 600, 700 businesses in London, it all gets together around December to support the food bank, which then supports all these different agencies. They've recently been partnering with Western Fair, holding the press conferences there. You folks at Western Fair housed all the food as it came in. It was so awesome watching all of that food come in. But I think part of the reason why businesses like Western Fair, this might sound a little counterintuitive, but I think it's right from speaking with them. Western Fair has a partnership with the city, even in the sharing of the land, right?
Yes.
Even as part
Yep.
of the tax base. You have issues where you work together with the federal government and the provincial government as well. So
Yes.
oftentimes government is seen as red tape and all of those kind of things. But for businesses, they look at the Western Fair and say, this is no fly-by-night deal. I mean, these folks have to work with various levels of government, meet very high standards, not just ethical standards, but say food quality standards, those kind of things. I think you guys operate at a really high level. And I do think for others, they know that if something is going to come out of Western Fair, it's not something that somebody dreamed up on the back of a postcard. It might have
Yes.
started that way, but it's not going to go through that. It's got to go through all of these filters. Do you find that difficult? I mean, with all of the standards that are there, do you find it hard always having to meet those? It gives you street cred. I get that, but do you find it hard to do all of that?
It's, you know what, we've been so lucky, and you've brought up some really amazing points. We've been so lucky with the federal development branch that we've been working with. They're so supportive. When we've had challenges in how we can work through and work with a company, and even the funding and sourcing and allocating the funds that we have that go to leasehold improvements when we're building an accelerator space for a company. They have been solution based. They've been really wanting to kind of figure out, okay, how do we make this work? And keep it efficient, remove red tape. So the great thing is we've created this relationship between the companies that really are excited and want to do this, and instead of them having to go and find this funding and work with that, we've kind of created this catalyst at Western Fair and conduit. And we work really closely with both to figure out and provide solutions. It's a phenomenal process, but it's also a phenomenal program because we support it the whole way through. We work with the companies right from the beginning. There is questionnaires, there is elements that we need to make sure that those companies fit within what we at Western Fair, but also what the Federal Development Group and Southwestern Ontario needs out of this. But again, we've actually found that questionnaire and that I say rigor, but it's not really a difficult process as much as it's just deciding whether a company is willing to kind of make the changes and adjustments to fit within what our pillars are, and that's community sustainability and agriculture support.
Yeah.
And we've found most companies have been like very much that can only make my business stronger and give it a better platform. So we haven't had any opposition to that. It's been really a great process, but there are processes and there are requirements to meet. We do report companies that we get this funding to. The funding isn't cash to a company. The funding goes directly towards helping to build their space, which means that their barrier to paying for leasehold improvements in a space, the things specifically that are part of infrastructure, which are expensive, we build that into this plan. So it's less upfront money that a company has to come up with. So it helps build their space and design it to their needs and tailor it to their needs. And we're finding that people are happy for that because they don't have to make these decisions. We actually help them along the way, and we actually get advice for them along the way. So we're there every step, right to the point where we give you a key and you move in. So it's been a really enriching and rewarding process. And of course, the incubator, they're designed for daily rentals. Again, when you're building up, you need a space that you can rely on, that you can get into when you need to get into it on a regular basis. That's where the incubator helps those companies, that maybe are producing food in their basement. Now they're ready. They're going to market stalls, but they want to get to that next level. So we have affordable spaces that this funding helped us build. So we have now kind of closed in some of the big gaps in a person starting up and just making their jams in the basement, to getting them into the small boutique food shops, but then on the way to getting them into more of that medium to large scale food manufacturing, where they can bring their product to a larger audience. So we've closed some of those gaps, and I think that's what this facility is doing at the Grove and what we're doing at Western Fair. I think it's a pretty cool process, because we can see them from start and to them being ready to create this new big Dr. Oak food processing space. You're dreaming big, you're thinking big, and we attract that here in Southwestern Ontario and London. It's an amazing space.
I worked in Ottawa for a number of years, as you know, and worked hard along with other folks from the region to get federal funding for Western Fair. But I remember back in that time, the industry itself, like the fair industry, the country fairs, all of those kind of things, was really in serious decline. They were shutting down fairly substantially across the country as that kind of way of life seemed to be moving on. And I remember that, for Western Fair, they were trying to figure out how do we transcend all of that. We realize we've got so many staples here that we can work with, the shows, all those kind of things, but how can we get to a new dimension? And it seems to me that you have done that. And so if I was a funder, like Dave Cork is a good friend of mine from the London Training Center, right? We've been around for 35 years working in London, but he works so closely with the province that immediately gives him some real credibility when people begin to partner with him. And I think you've done that as well, not just with the three levels of government, but the LEDC and others. It's really important, I think, that you've done that. But it seems to me you have really changed the channel. That the discussion earlier, when I was in Ottawa, was about how do we help some of these fairs or district associations survive when it's
Yes.
not like that anymore. And, we were trying to find, I was part of a committee, we were looking how you could do that. But you just kind of moved ahead, you transformed it, and you went into another area. And I can just see, I wish that would have kind of been like that when I was in Ottawa, because I think you see the future in the stuff that you're talking about, and you're also seeing the economy in the stuff that you're talking about that you're generating. I think that's really amazing because these weren't this kind of discussions we were having 10 years ago.
You're right. You're so right. And I think, we are getting a lot of, a lot of attracting a lot of people here to see what we're doing. And I think because we did decide to do something different, and because we're doing something different, what we're doing differently is creating a community that brings together our annual fair. Our annual fair is still one of the most important elements of what we do on an annual basis, and we just had one of the most successful fairs pre-pandemic. So, but again, that's community. How do we bring community together? Food is a big part of fair. We just had an amazing farm show, the first one we've had
There.
since before the pandemic. And honestly, that was my first farm show here at Western Fair. And honestly, they're goosebump bump moments for somebody who's new. I'm relatively new to London as well, of course. So to see that kind of event bring so many people together from this industry, and not just from Ontario, even further out of our provinces. And it's just phenomenal to see the support. We had the Minister of Agriculture here making an announcement during the fair on a fertilizer challenge, and the support that we're getting, and because we're supporting the industry and the food industry, and the importance of what that is in our region. It's amazing to have these people come to see what we're doing, because it is different. It is unique, but it's unique with those really key elements. It's supporting community, sustainability, which we all know is a big element. We've created a system here on site where we pretty much have 100% diversion of organic waste. We don't send any organic waste off our site. We actually we work with it here. We process it, and we make our own fertilizer with worm castings. Again, we're doing our small bit, for this community, and creating these processes that people are coming from all over to see what we've done in creating some of these really unique opportunities on site. So it's I've had many goosebump moments, more in my 2 years here than I think I can remember in my career. So it's pretty cool, and I think people are responding well to what we're doing. So it's exciting time.
I think, but don't take this wrong, but so much of it is invisible. Do you know what I mean? I mean, people see the Western Fair and they think of the farm show, or they think of the fair, right? The horse racing, those kind of things. And that's traditionally how they've always looked at it. But if they were
Yes.
there to walk around, they might come to the market, but they would be unaware in many ways of all of this new dimension that you've built into the Western Fair. It is not the old Western Fair. It still
No.
includes all those elements, but it's really
Yes.
moving into the future. And people need to explore that. I'd really like to be able to, if you're up for it, James, to do another one of these next week. Because part of what I wanted to talk to you about was you've done a lot for the charitable and nonprofit sector as well. And
Yes.
lots of groups that we work with and we share in working with. And I think that's a story that needs to be told. You're not just out there developing these new things. You're trying to take care of citizens that are vulnerable as well, and partnering with groups to do that. Would you be open to doing that? I know you might be busy next week, but sometime in the next couple of weeks, I want to do
Yeah.
it because I think it's what you've done today. I think is just, we never even got to that. We just transcended that
Yes.
and went to some of this really interesting stuff that people don't know. But I do think people need to know about the compassionate arm of Western Fair and what it's not only done, but is doing. And even in that, there's growth. That, you're developing new ways of moving forward with this. Would you be open to that?
I would love to, Glenn. Yeah, there's so many. We didn't even touch on probably a quarter of
Mm.
just the Grove stuff and that part. But yeah, we what we're doing at Weston Fair and supporting a lot of different groups. Yeah, we could probably do this every week for the next couple of months. But yeah, I would love to. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I would love to.
I think it's important that people know about all of these things. And because the Western Fair is so key, I think it would be like talking about farmland. You can't do all of that in one of these installments. We have to do more.
No.
People have to know more about what you're doing and also to support it. These events that are at the Western Fair, part of the reason why you're still running is because the public supports a lot of the things that you do. But they need to know that by coming down and supporting, going to the market, doing whatever, coming to a farm show, they're actually promoting and prolonging these new things that you've been working on and really giving it some substance. I think that's really great. If you're good, we'll do this next week. And I want to congratulate you at the Western Fair. You've had so much to go through in the last 10 years. So much, I can bring up a number of subjects that the Western Fair was trying to respond to and trying to figure out how they navigated. You've done it.
Yes.
Reg Ash, your director of CEO, he's been awesome. And I just want to congratulate you on that. But you've got more stories to tell. So let's do that next week. And thanks for doing this, James. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Glenn. Yeah, it's been amazing, and yeah, thank you so much for your time.
And the story continues. Thanks, James.
Take care. Bye.